What's going on, YouTube? Claic Yuzolt back again with another FFBE War of the Visions video, and I just got this information after doing some research and looking on the Reddit and looking on these different wiki pages. There are going to be some abilities you should not be learning on your units if you want to maximize their auto potential. And we're going to go over each of those abilities, and I'm going to link the page in the description below so you guys can learn which ones you want to stay away from, and hopefully you haven't made any mistakes yet, because a lot of these are more down the line. So let's get into it. Alright guys, we are over on the UltimateJP website. This is a website that has a lot of wiki stuff, a lot of rankings. I think it's pretty popular in Japan, and so I was this was brought to my attention looking on the War of the Visions Reddit. They had a big PSA, so thank you so much to that user for putting it out there. It's essentially a quick reference guide, and then it has some details down below on why you should avoid certain abilities with certain jobs and certain units when it comes to auto. So like the AI moving around, you want to optimize that AI. Obviously, if you don't care about the auto, which I really think you should, or if you've already done this, it's not the end of the world. It just means your auto is going to be working a little bit different or not optimized. Still can win, still can auto and win. And if you don't even, you care more about having all of your abilities available to you when you're not autoing, when you're really trying to hit that hard content, this may not also be for you. I will leave the link in the description below to this reference point, because it does have a lot of units that are not out in global yet, and you can reference it later when you get them. But it really is about jobs instead of specific units, but certain specific units only have certain jobs, so we're going to have to look at that. And again, these are all recommendations. So we're going to go ahead and move down to the first set of them. That's going to be your Paladin. So Mont, Engelbert in the game right now, these are who you want to look at. Indomitable Fighting Spirit is a ability that I know on Engelbert's is on the very outside, so I don't think anybody's got it yet. It's going to be an ability that you can cast on yourself, a supported type ability that gives you a buff that says if you were going to die, you withstand death and you stay there. That's like Guts, right? You guys know Guts from Final Fantasy games. And it's pretty good, right? If you think about it, it's awesome. But the thing about this game is I've learned from this website that the AI likes to do the actions that they can do in this order. They will do recovery, they will do buffing, they will do debuffing, and then finally they will attack. So that's the order they are looking to do, right? That's what they want to do. So with this Indomitable Spirit, remember that if it is a support type ability, buff, stuff like that, it will use TP instead of AP. And TP, you cannot get over time of battle. You have a certain amount, and if you use it, you're done, right? Whereas AP, you do start with a certain amount, and then you can get it back by hitting enemies and refilling that up. And that's mostly for attacks. So with this Indomitable Spirit, what it says here is your tank normally wants to use Sentinel or Saint Wall. You want your auto tank to use that because that's going to give them a lot of mitigation and a lot of defense and staying alive. And that's what you want to stick with over it just spamming this Indomitable Fighting Spirit, because then it will go all the way down. He'll resist death and then he'll die, right? Because he doesn't have the HP or the defense to stay alive long enough. So that's where you kind of want to be with that. They do say that it's okay. It's not some big problem, but that's where we're at with that. The next one is Divine Grace. This is one you definitely want to avoid at all costs when it comes to your Paladins, strictly because what it does is increases your maximum HP by 10% with your allies for 3 turns. So you're going to cast it on all your allies. The problem with this in auto is your tank needs to be moving forward to grab aggro from the coming monsters. And if they have this ability, what they'll do is they'll stay back, or they'll sometimes run backwards to try to cast this on your team, which will cause the enemies to run in and start murdering all your people down. So you need to be really careful about that and avoid that. I'm going to avoid that for now. Really up to you guys if you want to put it on your tank. Moving on, we have Hunters here. It says to avoid charge and high charge here. Charge apparently isn't as big of a deal. It charges an attack with a casting time. This can cause problems such as being dislodged by enemies or shooting a dead enemies because it has a long time casting time. So casting times in this game, you got to aim and then you shoot, or you aim and do something, or buff, or do a magic spell. And you want to avoid that and have your AI just using the abilities that are kind of instant. Auto is landmining AVI. This is like an ability because it is used with care without encroaching on the enemy's action. So like essentially you just don't want that on you. High charge, because the power is higher than the charge, it will use it as higher priority. So essentially, if you didn't know this about the AI in the game, it will prioritize your most powerful attack. It will try to use that most powerful attack every time if it thinks it's going to do more damage. And so you want to avoid that because it's going to try to use this high charge, and then you won't be able to use, it says the ability Sniper, which I'm assuming is a better ability. So you want to avoid putting this on your Hunter class if you get them. Next up, we just have a Gilgamesh one. So this is only, again, there are some characters that are only for, some abilities, sorry, that are only for certain characters. We have Gilgamesh up. We want to avoid Blade Crest. Blade Crest is an ability that performs a magic attack with a debuff effect. It's magical, and Gilgamesh is not very magical. He looks pretty magical to me. So it tends to have less damage. It requires careful attention because it does not reach the practical level unless you increase the magical power with equipment and vision cards. Since it is not, it can be avoided by changing the job. So another thing we need to look at here, guys, is again, some of these abilities will come from their sub jobs, and some of these most of the sub job abilities that you can learn will only be active if it is set as the current sub job. So if you want to avoid using some of these abilities, maybe set to only your main job, or maybe change, if you've already picked one of these, maybe switch to another job, and that's going to stop you from using, you know, your AI using these abilities that you may not want, like Blade Crest right here with Gilgamesh, plus his time magic would be the best thing to have as a sub job in my opinion. Sharp. Ice Blade is an attack that deals magic dependent damage. So as we just talked about, you don't want to be doing magic damage with your Gilgamesh. You want to be doing physical. He likes to do physical damage. It is not recommended to use Ice Blade and Gilgamesh, which is often used when you want to shoot Toru or Excalibur. And these two abilities are fantastic on your Gilgamesh, and you want your AI to be using those, the auto to be using those. So that's why you would avoid those two abilities on Gilgamesh. This is the one I'm kind of worried about for people. She has, like, if we scroll up here and we look at her ability list for Ayaka, look at this. These are like, you can kind of get these, but you kind of want to avoid them. You for sure want to avoid these. That's what this list means. You know, kind of avoid, super avoid. Looking at hers, you want to avoid, it sounds weird, but like Ayaka's abilities become a mind changes. That means just like you don't, like a mind like explosion, like it's really bad for you, depending on the operation method. If you want to use magical attacks and a heal, all auxiliary abilities are going to mess you up. So you don't want to have protect, you know, any kind of buffing ability, debuffing ability. If you want her just to spam her nice big magic attacks and heal your team up, that's what you want to do. Because remember, it does do recovery first, then it goes to buff, then it goes to debuff. But if no one's hurting, recovery goes away and you're stuck with the buff and debuff, and she'll just spam all over TP and use it all really quick, and you'll be screwed over on being able to do that. So it does say for Ayaka's AI has priority recovering allies with reduced HP, then assisting, then weakening, and then doing an attack magic. So like I just said, Ayaka will be like, okay, is anybody hurt? Nope. Okay, cool. Well, it looks like you need to protect. That'll be her turns if nobody's hurt. And then she will also, looks like that enemy over there needs debuffed. Deprotect, and then finally she'll use her magic powers, which are actually pretty good. She has some good ones. Ayaka will almost eliminate landmines if he or she is in charge of spreading haste and regenerating. If a friend is nearby, assistance will be given priority, so sometimes mages will repeatedly hit haste and regenerate. Therefore, if you stop expecting an attack, you can use it as an excellent aid in recovery. However, Barrow, I guess, I don't know, is not recommended to learn at the present because there are too few useful situations for it. So, again, she does have Time Mage as a sub spot, and casting haste and stuff is always awesome, right? So I don't think you'd mind that too much. But when it comes down to Ayaka, again, she's one of the ones I think you have to be really careful of. And if you want to learn all those Time Mage abilities, and maybe in another fight you want her to be casting everything else, just take the Time Mage subclass off and just be using her White Mage, but try to avoid things like Protect and stuff like that if you want her to prioritize healing and then doing actual magic damage and not wasting all of her her resources on just buffing everybody up. So next up we have one for Medina, which is a big one, but no one's gotten to it yet, and this is going to be a really one that you guys are going to have to decide on your own. Medina's whole thing about her is she can get her LB on turn 1, spam it, and it does a lot of damage once it gets leveled up. They're saying that's Blizzaga, I'm assuming is what that translation is. It takes a while to get to that on her skill tree, her ability tree, so you'll be fine there. I don't think anybody, maybe somebody's got it. But they talk about how you don't want to put it on because if it becomes too powerful, instead of going in and using the LB turn 1, she'll go in and try to cast that, and it'll take down her AP. And it takes a while to cast. Like her LB is instant cast, whereas Blizzaga may take a while depending on your cast times and how you have your team set up. So I would much rather, and I think you guys would too, in an auto situation for her to cast her LB first. So it's going to be up to you guys and how you want to mess with that. But that's one for Medina. Moving on down, we do have the Clerics here, which we have Moncherie. Anti-Calamity is a mine. Anti-Calamity grants a buff to disable allied conditions for 3 turns, but Clerics will try to start from 1, and regardless of whether or not the opponent uses the status error because of the auxiliary priority AI. So essentially, what this means is your Clerics will immediately start trying to cast the anti-calamity on everyone, even if there's no chance that they can be hurt by I guess it would be status elements. So that's why you want to avoid it. Although there are no useful scenes, the ability to select enemies is overwhelmed and the strength is severely reduced. So seal the edge of the ability board until necessary time comes. So essentially they're just saying don't put anti-calamity on. until you get to a point to where you really need it in a fight where you're not going to auto, and then it'll make your clerics work a little bit better. We have some for red mage, and I can't believe this. Fast cast, not usable for red mages. Fast cast has the effect of shortening the activation time for you and your allies' abilities. Red mages do not benefit much because their mainstay is jammer thrust, which has no casting time. So this stuff's starting to make sense, right? So on a red mage, jammer thrust is their go-to, and it has no casting time, so they don't care about fast cast because you mostly want your jammer thrust to be being cast. So that makes sense. In addition, AI gives priority to assisting characters, as we've talked about, healing, buffing, debuffing, actually going into attacks. It sounds like you want your red mage to go do damage. So who hate up. AI gives priority to assisting characters who hate up due to Oath of Love, due to the nature, but it is not recommended to acquire a tank because it is the most meaningless to apply a fast cast to the role of tank. So apparently it sounds like to me if your unit has hate up, for example, you know, in our game, it's not called Oath of Love, but you guys know what it's in our game. I showed it in my reroll guide. It sounds like if something has hate up, all of your units will prioritize, which is cool. I didn't know that, but it seems like it's what I'm reading here. Your units will prioritize helping that unit out because they know that all the hate and all the enemies are coming at them. And then as it says, tanks do not benefit at all because they don't have much casting time. I don't even know if there's a tank ability that has casting time. You guys can tell me in the comments below, but it looks like you wouldn't even need that. So you want to avoid that as well. Magic Swordsman, Magic Resist. Although not a landmine, Magic Resist is a ability that needs attention. Whispers and Daros are slow to get to the front line because they are allied to allies. They are allied to allies. Choosing where to use the effect is also difficult. Ramza and Dario, which I'm assuming the unit we see here is Dario, are difficult to avoid because they are in the early stages of the board, but it's a good idea to keep the Whisper until you need it. So I'm assuming it's an ability you just want to avoid because the AI won't like really know how to cast it very well, this Magic Resist, and so you just want to not have it on the best you can. But as it says, I'm assuming this is Dario. Sorry guys if it's not, you guys can correct me in the comments below. And Ramza from Final Fantasy Tactics will have a hard time because it's in early on top of their board. Like, you know how you go through the board, you have to start selecting stuff as you go out. It's much easier to avoid the outside ring of abilities, right? Because you don't have to go through them to get to other ones. But it sounds like it's an ability you want to avoid for as long as you can, and then you're going to end up having to get it. And last but not least, we have Rain. Cannot wait for him to come to fucking War of the Visions, dude. I'm so excited. Burning Body. A Flaming Body is I think it's ability. I think AVI they mean ability that grants ice resist up to plus 25% and gives abnormal condition resistance. It is useful in some situations, but lacks versatility and has the problem of being used in preference to Astral Guards. Use of Astral Guards is required to use Rain as a magic tank, so it is possible that you may not be able to perform the role of auto, so we recommend that you keep without learning it. So as you can see, it seems like, you know, he has Burning Body, gives him a lot of ice resistance up, and then abnormal condition resistance, and then it's tough because you want him to use Astral Guards instead. So again, you guys can reference this if you want. Hopefully, if you've made any mistakes, you can go back and fix them by switching off your sub job. But I wanted to make you guys aware of this because I'm going to be following it, and you guys can come reference this on your own. I would have this up if you pull one of these units to go back and look at. And then again, this is all suggestions, and this is only for auto. When you get into a battle that's really tough and you can't auto it, and you really need these abilities to help you out, at that time, you're going to have to make a tough call. Do I activate this ability forever? Because I don't think there's any way to remove the abilities, or do you, you know, just grit your teeth and try to get through the fight without it, so your auto ends up being better in the end. So if you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up. Comment down below if you agree, disagree with any of this. Have any questions? Did I explain something wrong? This was like broken English. I did the best I could. I'm just learning the game. Subscribe here on YouTube for more War of the Visions content. Follow me on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Claic Yuzolt, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.